October 26, 2025. The day began like any other on the world's geopolitical stage, filled with the usual hum of diplomacy and distant conflicts. But it ended with a thunderclap that echoed from the Arctic Circle to the halls of the Pentagon. A brief, almost clinically sterile press release from Russia announced the successful completion of the final testing phase for the 9mm 730 Burevestnik missile system. In the analytical centers of NATO and the intelligence hubs of Washington, D.C., a profound silence fell. It wasn't the silence of peace, but the deafening silence of a paradigm shift. For years, the Burevestnik, known by its NATO designation SSC-X-9 Skyfall, had been a phantom, a computer animation shown by President Putin in 2018. A boogeyman for defense analysts, a theoretical threat, but on this day, the ghost became real. The world's media machine, caught off guard, scrambled to react. Headlines exploded across news sites, their language a mixture of alarm and disbelief. Russia confirms test of Doomsday, nuclear-powered missile, screamed the Times. A weapon without limits. What is the Skyfall and why is it so dangerous? Asked the BBC. For decades, the very concept of a nuclear-powered cruise missile was considered engineering insanity, a relic of the Cold War's most terrifying ambitions. The United States had explored a similar idea in the 1960s with Project Pluto, a monstrous flying reactor designed to patrol for weeks and drop hydrogen bombs before deeming it too uncontrollable, too dirty, too apocalyptic to even build. It was a line that the superpowers, in a rare moment of shared dread, had decided not to cross. Now, it was clear that Russia had not only crossed that line, it had sprinted across it and built a fortress on the other side. This is not just another missile. It represents a fundamental challenge to all existing strategic defense doctrines. Its core promise is invulnerability through unpredictability. A conventional ICBM follows a high, arching trajectory, a path that can be tracked and, theoretically, intercepted. The Burevestnik follows no rules. Powered by a miniature nuclear reactor, it treats the Earth's atmosphere as its fuel, granting it a range limited not by kerosene, but by the half-life of its atomic heart. It can stay airborne for days, even weeks, weaving a complex, globe-spanning path at low altitude, hugging the terrain to remain invisible to radar. It can approach a target from any direction, including the one no one defends, from the south over Antarctica. How did this weapon, born from the most audacious and dangerous dreams of the Soviet atomic era, become the ultimate asymmetric trump card for 21st century Russia? This is the story of the Burevestnik, a chronicle of an engineering challenge that blurs the line between defensive genius and apocalyptic madness. Part 2. Legacy of Giants, the Soviet Atomic Sword. To understand the Burevestnik, one must journey back in time, not to the polished design bureaus of modern Russia, but to the smoke-filled offices of the Cold War. The 1950s and 60s were a period of unprecedented technological terror and ambition. The United States and the Soviet Union were locked in a deadly embrace, each side convinced that the key to survival was a weapon so devastating it would make war unthinkable. This philosophy, mutually assured destruction, spurred the creation of the most terrifying machines in human history. It was in this crucible of fear and innovation that the dream of a nuclear-powered weapon of infinite reach was born. In America, this dream took the form of Project Pluto. It was an idea of breathtaking audacity, a supersonic, low-altitude ramjet missile codenamed SLAM, Supersonic Low-Altitude Missile. The concept was nightmarish. SLAM would be powered by a nuclear reactor that would superheat air rushing through it, propelling the missile at Mach 3, it was designed to fly for weeks on end, hugging the terrain below the enemy's radar net. Upon reaching its target area, it wouldn't just drop one bomb. It was designed to eject multiple hydrogen bombs on different cities before its mission ended. Even then, its work wasn't done. The unshielded reactor would continue to spew lethal radiation over the landscape below, and the missile itself would finally crash, becoming a dirty bomb at its impact site. The Pentagon called it a flying crowbar. In 1964, after successful engine tests, the U.S. government canceled the project. The weapon was deemed not just strategically destabilizing, but morally and environmentally abhorrent. It was too horrific even for the architects of the Cold War. But across the Iron Curtain, the same laws of physics were inspiring Soviet scientists. While the Americans publicly shelved their atomic ambition, the Soviets quietly pursued their own path. Their goal was not just a missile, but the conquest of the sky with atomic power. Legendary aircraft design bureaus like Tupolev and Myasishchev were tasked with creating a nuclear-powered strategic bomber. The resulting projects, such as the experimental Tupolev Tu-119, which flew with a working reactor on board, though not powering its engines, were marvels of engineering. The challenge was immense: how to create a reactor small enough for a plane, yet powerful enough to propel it, all while protecting the crew from a lethal dose of radiation. They solved incredible problems, developing novel materials and compact reactor designs. These weren't failed projects. They were invaluable lessons written in uranium and lead. The dream of an atomic engine was kept alive, filed away in the secret archives of the military-industrial complex. The knowledge wasn't lost. It was waiting for technology to catch up to the ambition. It was the foundation, the intellectual and engineering inheritance upon which the Burevestnik would one day be built. Part 3. The Flying Chernobyl, an engineering nightmare. At the heart of the Burevestnik lies a concept that is both brilliantly simple and terrifyingly complex: the nuclear-powered Ramjet engine. To understand its revolutionary nature, one must first forget everything we know about conventional engines. A standard jet engine is a controlled explosion, burning fuel with air to create thrust. It is limited by the amount of fuel it can carry. The Burevestnik carries no fuel in this sense. Its engine is a furnace, and the reactor is its eternal flame. It inhales the air it flies through, forces it directly through the core of an active nuclear reactor, heats it to incandescent temperatures, and expels it out the back at tremendous speed. In theory, as long as the reactor functions, the engine can produce thrust. The missile's fuel tank is the sky itself. This elegant principle, however, masks a set of engineering challenges so profound they were long considered insurmountable. Building the Burevestnik meant solving at least 3 problems that existed at the very edge of known physics and material science. First was the problem of miniaturization. A nuclear reactor is typically a massive structure, a cathedral of reinforced concrete and lead shielding. Even the most compact reactors, designed for nuclear submarines, are multi-story behemoths weighing thousands of tons. The task for the Burevestnik's designers was to shrink this entire concept down to the size of a small oil drum, light enough to be carried by a missile. This required a complete reimagining of reactor physics, demanding fuel elements with an energy density previously thought impossible, and a design that could go from a cold, dormant state to full criticality in a matter of seconds. Every gram mattered, and every component had to perform its function in a space no bigger than a suitcase. Second, and perhaps most daunting, was the challenge of heat and materials. The core of an active nuclear reactor is one of the most hostile environments man can create, reaching temperatures of thousands of degrees Celsius. Now, imagine ramming cold, high-velocity air directly through this inferno. The thermal shock is violent enough to shatter most materials like glass. Furthermore, the intense neutron flux, the storm of atomic particles released by the reaction, bombards the engine structure, making conventional metals brittle and causing them to literally flake away. The engineers needed to invent entirely new materials, likely exotic ceramic composites or tungsten-rhenium alloys, that could withstand this simultaneous thermal and radiological torture for days on end. They were not just building an engine. They were forging a cage for a miniature star. Finally, there was the critical problem of safety and deployment. The ghost of Project Pluto was its radioactive exhaust, an unshielded reactor that would poison the very air it flew through. To make Burevestnik a viable strategic weapon and not a suicide device, a more sophisticated approach was needed. The solution is a two-stage system. The missile is first launched by a conventional solid-fuel booster rocket. This rocket propels the Burevestnik off the launch pad and carries it to a safe, high altitude, far from populated areas. Only when it has reached this designated zone does the booster fall away and the reactor initiate criticality, firing up the main nuclear ramjet. While this system brilliantly solves the problem of ground contamination at launch, the physics are inescapable. The air expelled from the engine is, by its very nature, radioactive. It's a cleaner design than Pluto, but it still leaves a temporary trail of radiation in the upper atmosphere, a ghostly signature of its unprecedented power. Part 4. The Weapon of Asymmetric Response. The collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991 sent shockwaves through its vast military-industrial complex. Ambitious, high-concept projects were shelved, their blueprints gathering dust in forgotten archives. For a time, the dream of a nuclear-powered missile seemed destined to become a mere footnote in the history of the Cold War, but the knowledge was never lost. As Russia emerged and began to rebuild its scientific and military capabilities in the 21st century, a new technological landscape presented opportunities the Soviet pioneers could only have dreamed of. The advent of supercomputers allowed for complex modeling of reactor physics and thermodynamics that previously would have required years of dangerous physical experiments. Breakthroughs in material science provided the exotic alloys and composites needed to withstand the engine's infernal conditions. The ghost in the machine was about to be resurrected. The world was formally introduced to the Burevestnik on March 1, 2018. During his State of the Nation address, Russian President Vladimir Putin unveiled a suite of new strategic weapons, and among the hypersonic missiles and underwater drones was the most startling of all, a computer-animated video of a cruise missile with a seemingly infinite range. The reaction from Western analysts was a mixture of deep concern and profound skepticism. Many dismissed it as a paper tiger, a propaganda tool designed to intimidate, believing the immense technical hurdles remained insurmountable, but the successful test in October 2025 silenced the doubters. Russia had not been bluffing. It had patiently and methodically solved the engineering nightmare. To understand why Russia invested so much in this seemingly outlandish weapon, one must understand its strategic purpose. The Burevestnik is not a first-strike weapon. It is far too slow. Where an ICBM can cross the globe in 30 minutes, the Burevestnik might take more than a day. Its role is far more sinister, and from a military perspective, far more elegant. It is the ultimate weapon of guaranteed retaliation. Its combat characteristics are designed to nullify the entirety of the United States' multi-trillion-dollar investment in missile defense. First, its unlimited range is synonymous with unlimited time. A Burevestnik can be launched during a period of escalating international tension and placed in a holding pattern over a remote location, like the South Pacific or the Arctic Ocean. It becomes a sword of Damocles, circling invisibly for days, waiting for the command to proceed to its target. This creates a new, unnerving psychological dimension to nuclear deterrence. Second, its unpredictable trajectory makes it the key to an undefended door. All existing missile defense systems are geographically oriented. They are built to watch for threats coming from specific directions along predictable, high-arcing ballistic paths, primarily over the North Pole. The Burevestnik renders this entire defensive architecture obsolete. It can approach North America from the south, flying over Antarctica. It can cross the Atlantic, swing around South America, and attack from the Gulf of Mexico. It does not follow an arc. It follows a flight plan, one that can be programmed to exploit every known gap and blind spot in an enemy's radar coverage. Finally, its flight profile ensures invulnerability. By flying at extremely low altitudes and using the terrain, hugging coastlines, weaving through mountain ranges, it stays below the detection threshold of most early warning radar systems. It is not a spear thrown from the heavens. It is a dagger in the dark. This combination of factors creates a weapon that, once launched, is practically unstoppable. It is the ultimate insurance policy, a tool of asymmetric response designed to send one clear message. No matter how sophisticated your shields are, our sword will always get through. Part 5. History's Verdict, Genius or Madness. The story of the 9M730 Burevestnik is, in the end, a story of a paradox. It stands as an undeniable, breathtaking monument to technological achievement. The sheer intellectual firepower required to shrink a nuclear reactor to the size of a missile, to forge materials capable of containing a miniature star, and to orchestrate the flight of a weapon with near infinite endurance is nothing short of genius. It is a testament to the enduring power of a scientific school that refused to let the audacious dreams of the atomic age die. From a purely strategic standpoint, the Burevestnik is a masterstroke. It was designed to solve a single, critical problem in the complex equation of nuclear deterrence: how to guarantee retaliation against a technologically superior adversary protected by a growing shield of missile defenses. In that, it succeeds completely. It is a weapon that rewrites the rules of strategic defense, ensuring that the principle of mutually assured destruction, the grim bedrock of global peace for over 70 years, remains firmly in place. Yet, there is a profound and terrifying cost to this genius. To its critics, the Burevestnik is not a marvel, but a monster, the physical embodiment of engineering madness. The very concept of a flying Chernobyl, no matter how well engineered, introduces a new category of risk to the planet. While its two-stage launch system is designed to minimize radiological contamination on the ground, the unavoidable reality is that its exhaust is radioactive. Each test flight, each patrol, leaves an invisible signature in the atmosphere, a specter of contamination whose long-term effects are simply unknown. The potential for a catastrophic accident hangs over the project like a shroud. A malfunction causing the missile to crash could create a radiological disaster on a scale that would make conventional nuclear accidents pale in comparison, contaminating vast swaths of land or sea and triggering an international crisis. This weapon does not just challenge defensive systems, it challenges global stability itself. By creating a weapon that cannot be stopped, Russia may have inadvertently triggered a new, more dangerous and unpredictable arms race. Adversaries are now forced to consider their own impossible technologies, pushing the world further into a realm where weapons are guided by artificial intelligence, travel at hypersonic speeds, and operate in domains beyond human control. The Burevestnik is the ultimate expression of a grim logic, that the only way to feel safe is to create a weapon so terrifying that its use is unthinkable. So, where does history cast its final verdict? Is the Burevestnik the brilliant shield of a nation determined to protect its sovereignty, or is it the reckless creation of an absolute weapon that threatens the global commons? The truth is, it is both. It is a chilling masterpiece of human intellect, a powerful symbol of national pride, and a terrifying harbinger of a new era of atomic uncertainty. It pushes the boundaries of science and strategy, forcing the world to once again confront the razor's edge on which it lives. The terrifyingly thin line between the engineering genius that allows humanity to reach for the stars and the madness that empowers it to extinguish them forever.